welcome to another episode of CrossTalk, your 5th Plymouth District edition, featuring none other than State Representative Dave DeCoste, who joins us on a regular basis to provide updates and information when it comes to what's going on in and around the district and up at the State House, some of the key issues. Representative, welcome back.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, Kevin.
How are you?
I'm doing well. All is well. As we talked beforehand, the sessions are wrapping up, so voting. Matter of fact, I've got to go vote for the Housing Committee. I just got a polling, and they're wrapping up some bills. As always, some good bills are going to the graveyard, but that's the way things work in Beacon Hill.
You and I kind of have outlined a couple of the key topics that we're going to talk about. Probably I want to start out with kind of giving a little bit of an overview of the past year. What do you consider were some of the biggest legislative accomplishments that took place in the first part of your legislative session, whether it's for you personally, the district, or as a body?
Well, we did do some bills that, became felonies, for instance, for medical workers who were attacked, and I could point to that. We passed a budget that had a reasonable amount of funding for Chapter 70 for the schools. We're moving along on rebuilding the VOTAC. That's a bureaucratic issue, but that's going to happen, and that's important. In many cases, I think this sounds on a sour note, but starting off, we passed a lot of money and put a lot of money into non-citizens, and many of my colleagues voted against that, and I think I went back and forth in terms of with the Republicans. It's ultimately when they put a vote, all votes pass. It's almost like the Soviet legislature. The rest of New England doesn't always operate like that, but if the vote goes up, it's going to pass. And my colleagues on the other side, if they don't support it, they lose their chairmanship, and that's a $50,000 plus pay cut, and impact on their pension and everything else. So I could talk, and I know you will probably get into some really good bills that large and small that will not see the light of day for the 4th, 5th, 10th session. And that's a shame.
What do you feel were some of the biggest challenges that the legislature faced, especially the House, in 2025?
Taxation, spending, where the money went to. And again, our towns are now considering, the Mass Municipal Association is pushing, along with others, Mayor Wu, some type of relook at Prop 2.5. And part of that is because of local spending not matching inflation, and I know there's a great debate. Some groups will tell you that if you calculated inflation the way that it used to be, it's a lot higher. It's 11 or 12%. I guess it really depends on each one of us has a different rate of inflation because each one of us consumes different things. But overall, the schools, for instance, and local government are going up quite a bit. And that's a roundabout way of telling you that I was deeply dissatisfied with the level of Chapter 70 funding that we pushed out to our communities. And I've often said that I think any supplemental budget should just be taken, and to the extent that we can, should be taken and just distributed as unrestricted local aid to the communities. And that would mean for all of us down here in the South Shore, hundreds and hundreds of millions, in some cases, more money that we can spend and dedicate towards towards those things that we need to get done.
And for folks who don't know, you mentioned the word supplemental budget. I'm sure I can give an idea of what the term is, but you probably can do it. You can give it a little bit more, be a little more eloquent than I can. How often do you have a supplemental budget before you to vote on? And where does it come from? And where does a lot of those funds get redirected?
Right. We have an initial budget, and if additional monies come in or something happens with the federal government
above what's projected,
above what's projected, or in addition to, we will have a supplemental budget, and sometimes it's to address additional costs that come in. But the nice thing about Massachusetts is that we are able to do this, and we're forced. We can't deficit spend in the state, and so we are forced at the end of the year to balance a budget. And for instance, when there are windfalls, and I should know this off the top of my head because I'm a big advocate of fully funding pensions, overfunding if I had my way. But there is a policy whereby when we get that extra tranche of money coming in through taxation, some of it goes to the rainy day fund, and I believe some of it goes to some specific pension funds. So that's where basically you'll have additional supplemental budgets. And but if you look through the spending on some of that, and it's not to diminish what we do, but if you took a look at it, I think it would be much better if we pushed it down, in my case, to the select men and women in Norwell, Hanson, Rockland, and in Hanover. They would do a better job directing than the state does.
Okay. Yeah. How would you describe the mood as we're closing out 2025 up on Beacon Hill right now? Is it collaborative? Would you say it's tense, divided? If you were to kind of give a description.
Well, that's a good question. I get along with all of my colleagues down here, Democrats and Republicans. As a matter of fact, I work quite closely with many Democrats on, for instance, Joan Moschino. We have a lot of issues in common in terms of plussing up support for instance, the watercraft and the ferry service in her district. Well, it affects people in my district quite a bit. The same with the trains. So we want to get the trains and the ferries running on time. We want to get all regionally things like South Shore Votech on track and that going. That took quite a bit. And Senator Keenan and all of us down here. Senator Keenan has been down because he shares Hanover with me. And certainly Senator O'Connor and my Representative Moschino, Representative Sweezy, Representative Carney, all in the same boat in terms of moving that around. So there are positive things that are happening, and then the push for taxation, I think, is creating even. I think it's more of a suburban. There's a lot of pushback in the suburbs, and people do not want to hear about higher taxes. I could tell you one thing, that the unemployment rate is going up. People are leaving the state. There's a debate about how many people are leaving, but I can tell you, and this is just anecdotally, but a lot of people, when it comes time to retire, they're going to be gone. And I have absolutely been seeing that in all four of my towns. They typically move south, but in some cases they'll move to New Hampshire. And so I think there's a growing skepticism in terms of both increased taxes and spending.
You've teased it a couple times mentioning the South Shore Technical in Hanover. Yeah. It's a community. It's a school that has 9 communities involved. We could see a 10th soon.
Pembroke will probably come in.
Pembroke is under part of the conversation right now, but they're going to be building a new school.
Right.
Thanks to earlier votes this year, the town meetings went well. But there's something new that's on the horizon in regards to trade schools like South Shore Technical, where there could be where they're talking about a state-mandated lottery for vocational school admissions. How real is this? And is it possible that this is something that South Shore Technical is going to have to deal with?
Well, they will have to deal with it.
Why?
Because that's the Department of Secondary Education is mandating, and that is, I don't know how much you want to drift over the political, but I have kind of made it my mission with the 3 Republican candidates.
Running for governor.
Yeah, Keneally, Shortsleeve, and Minot, all good guys, all good, very capable, all three very capable candidates. Any one of them, in my opinion, would be a vast improvement over who the current occupant of the corner office up on Beacon Hill. Very capable, and the other two easily could administer some very important secretariats, and they do a great job. And I have made it my mission to inform and lobby all three of them in advance. And I think I have basically, I think you'll see this reflected in the platforms coming up, that if they are elected governor, this policy is going to be reversed. And hopefully a lot of people in the Department of Secretary, to the extent they can make appointments, many people will be replaced with people more in line with letting local communities make decisions for themselves. But this lottery in specific is a bad policy because it discourages talented students from trying. Because under this policy, talented students who want to go to the VOTEC will have no special edge over anybody else. And it also, in fact, opens the possibility that you could get some folks who shouldn't be around, dangerous equipment, because let's face it, they've got some superb programs down there, but they're working around ovens and bandsaws and welding equipment and hydraulics with the tractors they have and the machines for the schools having to do with agriculture and so forth. By the way, this affects the agricultural schools as well.
Norfolk Aggie could be affected.
Right.
Yes.
So you could have a much less talented student who's not equipped even for behavior problems, and he'll be moved out and back to whatever town he came. And this is, by the way, throughout the state. He'll be moved out of that school, and the talented student still won't be in. There's a possibility they could move in subsequently, but it's there's a waiting list. But it's one of the things I have been focusing on. By the way, another one is I want to make them aware of the support that we have in here for the North River and the North and South River Watershed Association, the North River Commission. And a lot of people don't know it exists from outside this area.
But is there a conversation about disbanding it? Or is there? What's the conversation around the North? What's the conversation that we're at right now?
There's a bill now to disband it. It's not going anywhere. I'm not sure. It was sent to study. I certainly didn't support it.
Where bills go to
die.
Go away, yeah.
Right. And it's a euphemism for tabling it or it goes no further. And I don't believe it will be refiled next year, but I certainly support them. I'd make it a point. We have a lot of independent boards around here. And so I try to get, either talk to people independently on those boards. For instance, the joint Abington-Rockland Waterworks. We have Allison Sullivan and I, Representative Sullivan, talked to quite a bit because they've got some issues coming up in terms of water, and of course PFAS is an issue. But I try to make them aware of the issues we have down here. And two of them that, I've chosen to champion are getting rid of the lottery and really replacing a lot of people on the Department of Secretary of Education. We could do better. I will leave it at that. And I have some people locally that I'd like to see who are quite talented and would make the right decision. I think, for instance, Dr. Hickey from the South, I think he'd make a superb addition to that. Superb. And you have somebody, it's a little bit like on any other, and I don't mean to call it's a profession, and you want people who are knowledgeable and accomplished in the profession. Well, locally, I can't think of anybody better than him to go up because he has that unique experience, and he's been down there for a long, long time, many decades. Yeah, and I think he'd be a super addition to that, and I've mentioned him by name to all three of our candidates for governor. And
it's worth noting, besides Dr. Tom Hickey, besides serving as superintendent director, he's somebody I believe that he serves on local boards in Hanson as well. So he's not somebody who's just strictly in the educational field, but he also has a municipal understanding as well. One last thing I want to ask in regards to this vocational school lottery admission system. Is there anything that the legislature can do this session, or be able to file bills to supersede such an admission, or is this something that is strictly DESE is able to kind of implement this without any kind of
no, they're going to implement it. There are, of course, a legislative remedy. That's not going to happen. A lot of Democrats and Republicans have signed on to a number of bills. All right, but those bills are not going anywhere, unfortunately. And again, the best way to remedy this is to get a new governor.
Okay. We're at the halfway point of our conversation.
They fly.
They go fast.
Yeah.
You had teased it earlier in regards to people leaving the state because of the rising costs. We see in the news the Boston Mayor, Michelle Wu, and the Boston City Council looking to raise taxes. There's been a conversation about, should we do away with Prop 2.5? We've had conversations here at WHCA talking about what to do. How about a modification of maybe a Prop 3, or maybe a Prop 3.5?
How about a Prop 2 or 1.5?
So basically lowering that amount of property tax.
And if they're going to do it, they're going to need an override. See, I'm a proponent locally, and I might be in the minority, but I'm a proponent locally that there's not a lot of this that couldn't be handled by some good managerial accounting. I think cost accounting is it's an underrated subset of the accounting profession. I think you have a good managerial. So, in some cases, I know some communities where you don't even know what the payroll is. That you don't know who. It's not public information anymore. When we were young, it used to be printed in the town report. I don't know how in the world you can even consider or look at retrenchment without knowing who's working for the town and what they're being paid and what their function is. It is remarkable. And most people live their lives locally. They're here managing, working, managing families, managing businesses, taking care of the myriad responsibilities that, raising children entails. They don't have the ability to look at this. But we have had, for instance, in my town, he has since passed away, but just a terrific managerial and fraud accountant. He worked for one of the big four firms, a fellow named Ted Dodd. And he went into my town, Norwell's assessor database, and he found all sorts of discrepancies, all sorts of, it was a scandal on Facebook, and just things that were mismatched. They had houses, assessed in one way, and it was actually the house 2 doors down. Or on another street in a couple of cases, one I'm aware of. And that, so I'm not sure that there's not a lot of waste identified and things operated poorly. And we've got, and we could sit down and talk for 2 hours about the current shortage in other post-employment benefits, OPEB, which is basically health care for pensions that is exploding, and that has to do with the tax rates, and that, by the way, was driving a lot of the problems with taxes coming up.
Something else that we kind of, when we were looking at things to talk about, one of them was inmate phone calls. This is something I believe that the legislature is looking into. The cost of when an inmate is incarcerated is able to make phone calls. I believe that there's legislation that allows them to do it as much as they want. What's your thoughts as to where there's going to be an investigation to see why there's such high costs when it comes to the sheriff's departments and the inmates being able to place these calls all day long?
Well, the inspector general has been charged because there have been scandals involving other sheriffs, certainly not in Plymouth County, but other sheriffs regarding poor administration and possible illegal activities. But the bottom line is they're going to look at that, and the inspector general. Now, why the auditor isn't looking at these things, I don't know. She's in much better shape. She has much better shape to do it. She has a larger staff, and she has an auditing staff. This is not to diminish the inspector general, but her staff is much more is much larger. And aside from procurement, which is the IG's purview, everything else is hers. So it's puzzling why she's not looking at it, number one. And number two, you wonder what the whole political motivation is and why they would be looking at all of them, because there were only two or three, I guess, miscreant departments. No one has ever alleged that the sheriff, matter of fact, our Plymouth County sheriff administers the top 1% safest among the safest counties in the United States. Actually gives refunds money to the state through his agreement with the federal government, holding they hold Whitey Bulger and a whole bunch of other less well-known criminals at the federal level, and folks who don't belong in the country. To full disclosure, and they actually make money for the state. So I am not sure why they're looking at all the sheriff's departments. Now, the phone calls are an interesting subset. We mandated a long while ago, I guess 2 sessions ago, was when Governor Baker left. He vetoed it. It was implemented over his veto. But we had a program now that basically allows unlimited phone calls all day at taxpayer expense, and in some cases these phone calls are unwanted by the folks who are receiving them, as Sheriff Hero in Bristol Council mentioned. In some things it almost amounts to witness intimidation. We're spending a huge amount of money on those, and it really is a distraction from the incarceration, the rehabilitation reform missions that they have down there, and it leaves other activities significantly underfunded.
Could this investigation lead to some form of a statewide standards or reforms for communication services in correctional facilities when it comes to inmate calls?
Yeah, it could do that, but my fear is that the opposite. I think it's going to lead to more state interference in the administration of our prisons operated by our elected sheriffs. And I can tell you that, speaking simply for myself and from what I've seen in Plymouth County, the Sheriff's Department does not need any direction from Beacon Hill. Normally, in my experience, when you get guidance and direction from Beacon Hill, it's usually bad guidance and bad direction. Witness what they're doing with DESE, and I could give you a whole other plethora of other things, MBTA communities, things that they have done with the North River. It's just bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. My experience is that the bureaucrats on Beacon Hill are not very wise or talented individuals. Again, it's kind of blunt, but I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've been watching them in front of the Transportation Committee, in front of the Housing Committee, and but we don't need any help or direction from them. They could use financial help, certainly, but not, our schools down here are doing just fine without any input from our sheriff is doing just fine. Our police departments, the Post Commission, another superb example of help they didn't need, or it is not helpful down here. All it is more state interference, in my opinion, for police departments in Hanson, in Hanover, Rockland, Norwell that don't need their help. Our police teams in all of those towns are doing fine, and it undermines their ability to. And by the way, has really, I think, gone a long way to discourage people from joining for the forces and undermining the profession of law enforcement within the state of Massachusetts.
One of the two things that we'll touch upon as our time is dwindling down here, you alluded to, is to the Inspector General being tasked with taking a look at the inmate phone calls, and instead of you go with the auditor.
Well, the overall administration, because again, there's been some criminal activities in a few places. Apparently.
But we also have noted that there's an ongoing battle between the auditor's office, or the auditor herself, and the leadership up on Beacon Hill because of the passing of that the ballot question last year to audit the state legislature. And it seems as though 71% of the voters are not going to get their wish if the leadership up on Beacon Hill has their way. Is that why we're seeing the Inspector General being deployed in such a manner?
I suspect it is. You know, you can't look into people's hearts, but I think that that might be part of the motivation. And again, not to be partisan, but it's not the Republican Party that's causing these things. I think if you had, you know, the GOP, for one thing, you would get supplemental budgets that were basically distributed just right to the largely right to the communities.
We got about 4 minutes left. Looking ahead to 2026, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to tackling? Or if you were to give a prediction as to what we're going to see, again, that's when we see a lot of state races are going to start percolating.
Right.
What do you expect for 2026?
Well, it's an election year. One thing we didn't touch on is the potential for a lot of federal funding to be frozen.
Ooh.
So if that happens, either on the transportation side, I know that
could that affect the 27 budget too?
Well, it could affect programs coming in now.
Ooh.
You know, they've frozen in terms of money for, you know, remediation of lead pipes, for instance, because we haven't spent what we had. And keep in mind, we administered at the state level, not Plymouth County. We administered ARPA funds at the state level so horribly. Now we've got to refund a lot of money, and that's going to come in. The state, the Plymouth County, the leadership, you know, and both parties, Treasurer O'Brien did a terrific job with that. And most communities were able to identify costs and execute programs with that funding without a hitch.
Yeah, both CARES and ARPA.
Right. And but in the future, we might see, you know, major components frozen. And again, I'm hoping that next time I sit down with you, we will have taken a closer look at the amount of money we're giving to communities and we didn't even bring up housing authorities. I could go on, but I would like to see our housing authorities more broadly supported, because I will tell you, they do a terrific job. They really do. And it's directed primarily still at our elderly, modest income, moderate and lower income citizens, individuals you can't expect to go out and pick up a second job.
Okay. With our final 90 seconds here, there's an opportunity for your constituents to get information. If folks want to reach out to you or Abby, your fine aide, how can they be able to get in touch with you?
You know, they can email. My name's David Francis DeCoste, dfdecoste@gmail.com. We're revamping the website, but the Facebook site is off and up. And more people get to me through that. Okay. But I guess most importantly, today we're filming this on a Friday, and our office hours, the first, second, and third office hour, Fridays of every month, we are in the Council on Aging or the town offices, and the town offices can always put you in touch with me, as can any Council on Aging. And so we spend all of Friday mornings either at the Council on Aging, the first and third, or the town offices, the second. And they can come down and talk to me, or just contact us directly. I'm meeting somebody on a Sunday, as a matter of fact, regarding a tax issue. So.
Well, we want to thank you for coming in and informing the residents in the 5th Plymouth District. I want to wish you and yours a Merry Christmas.
Same to you and your family.
And a happy 2026.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Kevin.
And we want to thank you for tuning in to programs like CrossTalk, as we have developed kind of a little product line of CrossTalks. We're fortunate to have great relationships with the state reps and state senators. We wish you a happy 2026 and a Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Till our next conversation, have a great day.